Today we're going to do a different video. We're going to give you our thoughts on Bali.
We are Cory and Wallace, an early retired couple on a full-time journey around the world. With a passion for exploring new cultures, discovering hidden gems, and enjoying delicious local food, we are on a mission to experience as much of the world as we can.
We spent 2 months there. Now, this is not going to be for the full Bali. We did Kuta and Ubud. So what we say is Kuta and Ubud specific. Beyond that, we have not experienced. So we have no opinion beyond those two cities.
Yeah, that's fair. We spent basically 35 days between Kuta and Legion, and then spent the rest of our time in Ubud. So, we don't have any firsthand knowledge of staying in any other part of the island like, Seminyak or
Canggu,
Nusa Dua, any of the islands, the Gili Islands and so forth. So take that with a grain of salt. This is just our thoughts on our time spent in Bali. Like Cory said, we spent almost 2 months there. I think in total we were there for 58 days. So these are just our thoughts. We're going to start with the things we liked about Bali and then cover the few things that we weren't such big fans of. Do you want to give it a go?
The number one thing that I liked about Bali was the gluten-free food. It was super easy for me to eat. Not only gluten-free food, but I didn't have to explain what I needed with regards to cross-contamination because I went to dedicated gluten-free restaurants. Either the owner was celiac or they had really good knowledge. And for me, that was just a really, really nice change. It made my life really easy, and I got a lot of really good food.
Yeah, I'll agree with Cory there. I don't think we've been anywhere in the world that so far that was so easy for gluten-free. Being that most of these places were either dedicated gluten-free or had separate dedicated gluten-free kitchens, apart from the main kitchen, meant that Cory was easily able to eat out, and some of the best food we've had in a while, whether it was authentic Indonesian cuisine, Italian, food at Dolce Vita, some of the best gluten-free croissants Cory's ever had and that I've ever had anywhere.
Some of the best gluten-free bread as well in Ubud.
Yeah, so overall, very happy about the ease of gluten-free. And adding to that, I really loved the cuisine in Bali in general too, whether it was the local food like, of course, nasi goreng, but, I had amazing babi guling, pretty much everywhere we went. But even, some of the more Western food, had an amazing smash burger from a fast food place, Mr. Smash Burger out in Ubud. Like just the food in general, I was very, very impressed with.
Another thing that we really enjoyed were the sunsets. That was one of the huge highlights. Almost every night when we were in Kuta, we would walk back along the beach and we would catch the sunset. And it was spectacular almost every single day. And even in Ubud with the rice terraces, the sunsets were stunners there as well.
Absolutely. Beautiful sunsets, like Cory said. The beaches, just looked gorgeous with, that evening light hitting it. Ubud, the sunsets with the sun dropping behind, some of the trees and lighting up the rice terraces, absolutely beautiful. And then that leads right into the next thing. The rice terraces in Ubud were absolutely stunning. Ubud in general, just beautiful. Exactly what you imagine when you are thinking about Bali.
And the people for the most part were really awesome. Unfortunately, I think they have a harder life there. So you do get sold to a lot. I think out of all the places that we've been so far, you tend to get hustled as you walk down the street. I'm not blaming this on anybody. I think it's just I'm fortunate that their living situation is that getting a job is pretty hard. So that could be a potential reason as to that. But they were all really nice.
Yeah, no, I think Corey's right. The socioeconomic situation there just isn't great. It's a small island. It's got to be hard to make a living, for that many people. And so you get a lot of hustle going on there. So you do have to be firm, but, polite, and just say no whenever you're approached, which was very, very frequently. So that is one of the things you just have to be aware of when you are there. But other than that, like Corey said, the people in general, just wonderful people, friendly, welcoming. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever got the feeling from any of the locals that they didn't want us there.
No. And that kind of leads into the next one. The Balinese culture is something that is very prevalent, and it's beautiful. We actually ended up, the day that we went to Ubud, it was a ceremony, and just to see them celebrating still, like, to the extent that they do, like, the whole city basically shut down. And it was completely we just didn't know until we got into the car with our driver, and he's like, oh yeah, it's this ceremony of the day. So we were a little taken aback with how big the ceremony was, but it was absolutely beautiful.
It was, yeah. But like Corey said, they take it seriously, and it's quite something to see the entire town out celebrating, main road shut down, and just people everywhere. And it's crazy, but beautiful at the same time. Absolutely.
Okay, so this one's a small one, but hot water at all the taps. So we were in a hotel for the first month for a specific reason. That reason was just to get like hotel status with the Marriott. But in Ubud, we stayed in an Airbnb, and it had hot water at the kitchen sink, at the bathroom sink, and in the shower. And after living in Asia and like only having hot water in the shower, it's a nice change. Doing the dishes, so much easier.
Yeah, it definitely is something we take for granted. Not anymore, but having hot water readily available at all the taps is just something we enjoy. Makes washing greasy dishes easier. Washing greasy hands if you've been cooking and handling, meat and stuff, just so much easier. And I know not everyone's going to agree with this, but just it's a nice thing to have, even if it may not be necessary. Freedom from having a motorbike. This is both, I guess, a pro and a con. Really, you do need a motorbike to have the freedom and to move around easily in Bali. We didn't do that in Ubud, but we didn't do that in Kuta, but we did rent one in Ubud. And when you do have one, the freedom it gives you and the flexibility it gives you is fantastic. The traffic's a little bit chaotic by Western standards, but not unreasonable. Everyone does seem to respect, the rules of the road, so to speak, though the rules are different. Just kind of get used to it and, just go with the flow. And it worked out quite well. It was cheap and affordable for us to rent a bike for those couple of weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it was in Ubud. And it made life really, really easy. So yeah, that was fantastic.
And that one made us step out of our comfort zone. And as soon as we were really nervous in Kuta, we did not get the bike because we were like, no, there's no way we can do this.
The traffic was nuts. Yeah.
And then we got to Ubud, and we just were kind of feeling like we needed to be able to get around on our own. The walkability was just so minimal. So we took a step, and we're really glad that we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
The rainy season. Now, everybody knows that there's an off season for everywhere that you go. This is our first encounter with a rainy season in the tropics. Now, we have traveled to Asia before, so we knew what the rains were like. But in the rainy season in Bali, this was a particularly bad year because even the locals, I don't even think any of the locals said any different. This was the most rain that they've seen in years, and
like decades.
Yeah, so no word of a lie. It rained, I would say, almost every day, at least.
I honestly can't remember if there was any days that didn't have some rain.
Yeah. And if you talk to anybody, usually the rain comes for 10 minutes or so, just a really big downpour, and then it kind of clears up. This was not the case this time. It did that once in a while, but for the most part, once it set in, it was mostly for the afternoon. Sometimes we got a cyclone that was going through Australia, and it really affected us. So we had 3 days of intensive rain.
Yeah, like windy, rainy, like really bad weather.
Like I thought that the river across from the hotel was going to flood because it was raining so bad. For the most part, it's not really a big deal for us. We were not there on vacation, so it didn't really affect us. Our day-to-day life was not impeded in any way. So, but if you are there on vacation, I could see how that would be kind of a bummer. But again, weather, you can't do anything about it. You can't predict it. So if you're thinking of doing a vacation there, maybe just look up the rainy season and just avoid that.
Or not, because things are a little quieter during the rainy season, which is also coinciding with the off season. It's a little less busy, and in general, except this year being the exception, it seems like a lot of the times rainy season isn't that bad. It does only rain for a little bit each day, and then it's clear for the rest of the day. So it might also be, a good time to show up in Bali if you want to get less crowds and also some lower prices on accommodations and stuff. The next thing that we were pleasantly surprised by is how clean Bali was in general, especially in Kuta. The streets were in pretty good shape. We'd always see as we're walking down the main street, shop owners are always cleaning the street off in front of their shops, so the whole sidewalks, reasonably clean. Public bathrooms were very pleasantly, surprisingly clean. And so we didn't really have any issues at all there, did we?
No, it was really nice, honestly, going from Malaysia to Bali. I was expecting the bathroom situation to not be like super clean or whatever. I was pleasantly surprised. I did not go into a single public bathroom without it being super clean. So that was just enjoyable. It's the little things when you're traveling.
And now this is the final thing on our list, just because we don't want to be talking forever. Certainly not an exhaustive list of the things that is awesome about Bali, but the architecture. Balinese architecture is freaking gorgeous.
Whenever you watch anything with Bali, you'll see temples, you'll see rice terraces, you'll see just nature. When you get a combo of those, it is stunning.
The traditional Balinese gates, the temples, which are everywhere because the Balinese are deeply religious people, and there's temples everywhere, including pretty much every home or residence hotel also has them, and it just makes for a really beautiful sight to see. That was all the things that we can think of just off the top of our heads that we loved about Bali. There were a few things that in our experience weren't so great. The first being the traffic and the crowds. And again, we showed up in off season and thought that the traffic was pretty horrendous.
And
thoughts on that?
I would agree with that. But if you talk to the locals, that was nothing. Apparently Christmas time, I want to say it was a parking lot to us. Apparently it becomes even more of a parking lot because I guess
they have like tens of thousands of additional cars on the island from tourists coming over from the mainland on the ferries. So apparently the traffic gets even more insane during the peak seasons, which honestly I couldn't even imagine given how crowded it was already. So Bali, is beautiful. It used to be even more beautiful, apparently. We don't know. We were never there, 10, 20 years ago. But apparently it is nothing like it used to be. And it is very touristy, very crowded nowadays. And we definitely did notice that even during the off season.
Yeah. It's a very unfortunate situation with regards to the cars. And I would recommend, if you're going there, either plan to get a bike or take grab bikes, because those will be a lifesaver with regards to time. Because
even getting around in a grab car in some cases took a long time because the traffic situation is so bad. Whereas if you're going on a bike, you can zip around and definitely get places a lot quicker.
Unfortunately, the stray dog and cat situation is not ideal there. There seems to be very little put towards taking care of the issue. I think people have come to accept that animals just breed, and that is how it is. There were more strays there than any other place that we've ever encountered as of yet. We have not traveled extensively through a lot of places that also have bad stray populations, so this could change. our opinion could change in like 2 years' time. Who knows? But it was sad to see.
Yeah, definitely a lot of stray dogs, a lot of stray cats. One thing that we did notice, a lot of people, tourists and locals alike, feeding the strays. We'd see people riding along on a motorbike, stop to pet a stray dog, pull out a bag of dog food from the seat of the bike and, feed the dogs. There was one lady we encountered, you saw in the videos, who took it upon herself to drive around each night and feed the local stray dog packs, which is a beautiful thing to see. It's unfortunate, but there just isn't the resources to do more than that. It doesn't look like the shelters are able to handle more than what they're already doing. They're already overrun. There's shelters with like 100+ animals that they're already taking care of, and they just cannot take care of all the animals when they continually are breeding on the streets like that. So that's something that would take government intervention to implement, like a spay neuter program to actually get to the root of that problem.
Another downfall, in Ubud, it was really hard to walk around. Kuta was not so bad. Legian, when we moved hotels to the Legian area, it was really bad. There really wasn't any sidewalks or anything like that. And the streets are very narrow. There's constantly cars going through there. So sometimes you're like squished up against the side, letting a car go through. So that is... It doesn't.
Narrow roads, no sidewalks, lots of traffic is just not a great recipe. So it does make walking around a little more difficult. Again, if you have a motorbike, for example, not as big of a problem. But if you're trying to walk around a lot of places, it's going to be more difficult than it could be otherwise.
And due to the rains, the flooding, it was particularly bad this year. Like we said, this year with the rains, it was a particularly bad year. So we did experience a lot of flooding, and that did prevent us from walking places.
Yeah, like the entire roadway flooded, probably calf deep in water, no way to walk around it. So just something to be aware of if you are there in rainy season and there is potential for flooding. Maybe wear some waterproof shoes, or probably just flip-flops, because your waterproof shoes aren't going to be high enough to handle some of the puddles you're going to encounter.
And the other thing, I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody really, but the garbage on the beaches. Again, due to rainy season, a lot of the currents are headed towards Bali, so they're probably bringing in a lot of trash from the ocean. So that does not fall on Bali. It's just an unfortunate situation that they have to take care of. I don't believe they have a very good system in place to take care of garbage overall. Even in Ubud, our host said to put the garbage out and it would be picked up. And when he said to put it out, there was no trash can to put it out. It was just on the side.
Like bagged and on, like by the side of the street, yeah.
So unfortunately, animals did get into them, and it didn't get picked up very often. So that is a situation that unfortunately has to be addressed in the appropriate manner. Now, we did find one beach that was clean of garbage, and I think it's just the way that it falls on the island. Gager Beach, which was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, and that's the only place we did swim. Unfortunately, we did not feel comfortable swimming in Kuta along with all the trash.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. There was an insane amount of garbage washed up on Kuta Beach. Again, we understand, that based on the time of year and during rainy season, that can happen. So it very likely it would be a different scenario if you came back in July, for example, during peak season when the beaches will likely be a lot nicer. But that was unfortunately a negative aspect of our trip. Though, like Cory said, Gager Beach over by Nusa Dua was absolutely stunning and beautiful. Just a little bit more of a trek to get there from where we were staying. But yeah, I think that basically, covers the main list of, what we liked and didn't like about our stay in Bali. Bottom line, Cory, what do you think? Would you go back to Bali?
I think on the strength of the gluten-free food, we will return. Would I recommend it to anybody for a vacation? I would have to really think about that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. For me personally, I did think Bali was absolutely beautiful. There are some areas in Bali that were just stunning. And there are things that we haven't done there. We spent most of our time in Kuta and in Ubud. I'd like to personally go back and spend some time exploring places like Nusa Penida and Nusa Lembongan, and also the Gili Islands, Gili T, Gili Air, as well. One thing that in the future I'd love to do is go and do the Komodo Islands, from which Bali is a perfect starting point to do that trek. So for those reasons, I think I would go back.
Yeah. The reason we did not go to any of the islands was because of the time of the year that we were there. It was rainy season, and therefore the ocean is pretty rough. And we had heard some unfortunate incidences of the ferries not being, or I don't even know if they're ferries. They're like long boats to get over to the island.
Yeah, the ferries. Yeah, well, small ferries.
They're not properly equipped to handle that kind of weather. It doesn't stop the locals from trying.
And as we sit here and record this, it is now early April. Just about a week ago in the news in Bali, there was a tourist boat heading towards the islands that did capsize, overturned in rough waters. And unfortunately, one tourist did pass away. And that was kind of the scenario we were aware of that, could happen because of the time of year and the rough waters, which is why we chose not to do it. So that's just something we'll go back next time during peak season when the weather's a little better and do some of those things then. But anyways, I think that is it for this video. So thanks guys for joining us. We hope you found some value in, our list of pros and cons for of what we thought about Bali. If you did, please hit the thumbs up to give us a like and make sure you subscribe.
And this was not an adventure video by any stretch, but we hope that you'll join us in other videos for adventures. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.